Arun. The next session for the day is on the topic intelligence analysis, a holistic approach in fighting financial crimes. And this will be presented by Mr. Arun Ajayagosh, the Senior Manager for Financial Crime Compliance, AML, and Sanctions for Wall Street Exchange. So to quickly introduce Mr. Arun, he's a subject matter expert with over 14 years of experience in anti-money laundering, counter-terrorist financing, and anti-financial crime areas. He specialized in financial crime investigations, strategic and tactical intelligence analysis, machine, sorry, machine learning and terrorist financing typology assessment, and open source intelligence. He has been appreciated by the Financial Intelligence Authority of Uganda and the Royal Foundation UK for providing detailed transaction analysis, patterns, networks, and footprints on illegal wildlife trade. Additionally, he has been recognized by several other law enforcement agencies and regulators around the globe for providing actionable intelligence on various typologies such as terrorism financing, drug trafficking, human smuggling, human trafficking, wildlife smuggling and trafficking, child exploitation, sextortation, prostitution, sex trafficking, consumer fraud, etc. His intel reports have assisted law enforcement agencies in identifying the perpetrators of crime and bringing them to justice. He understands the role in financial crime investigations and is also well versed in global compliance rules, regulations, and legislations on AML and various other financial crimes. He's a certified anti-money laundering specialist, certified global sanctions specialist, certified financial crime specialist, and certified cryptocurrency specialist. Right. Thanks a lot, Mr. Arun, for taking some time off your schedule for being a part of this particular initiative. I leave the stage for you. Thank you. Mr. Arun, your audio is not working. If you could kindly check, kindly go to settings and see if, I mean, under the audio section, if you could kindly see if the actual device has been selected. You're still not audible, Mr. Arun. Or maybe you could just check the headphone adapter. No, you're still not audible. Or maybe we can just, yes, you're on mute as well.
All right. Am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible now.
All right. Great. Thank you. Let me present my slides. Are you able to see my slides, Anil?
Not yet. One second.
How about now?
Not yet, Mr. Arun.
Okay.
If you could try presenting it again. Yes, I do see that now. One second. I'll put you on this. Yes.
How about now?
Yes.
All right. Good afternoon to everyone. Before we get into the topic, let's understand the need for intelligence analysis. For that, let's look at the size of money laundered globally. You all know that it's somewhere between 800 billion to 2 trillion US dollars annually. Without a doubt, all financial institutions monitor transactions and report suspicious transactions in the form of either STR or SCR. But what percentage of SARs or STRs filed with regulators are further referred to law enforcement agencies? So, as per various estimates, it's mostly in single figures. But region to region, it might vary, but it's mostly in single figures. So if we have to see, what percentage of the activity that the financial institutions have referred to the regulators are actually being intercepted by the law enforcement authorities, it is less than 1%. So here, what we need to see is like, what could be the reason for the smaller number of STRs being shared by the regulators to law enforcement agencies. So one of the major reasons is lack of actionable intelligence in SARs or STRs. Generally, financial institutions tend to file, STRs without mentioning the actual financial underlying, financial crime. So those STRs end up as, defensive, filing. All right. So now let's get into the topic and understand how intelligence analysis will help in providing actionable intelligence. So for that, we need to understand what is intelligence analysis. So by definition, intelligence analysis is the process by which information is collected, processed, analyzed, and disseminated in the communities of interest. From a for a financial institution, intelligence analysis is the process by which the organization collects information about a certain financial crime typology, analyze the data to see if there are any footprints of the activity, and then disseminate the findings in the form of STR or SAR to the regulator. So let's look into the intelligence cycle. This is a five-step process that helps in developing raw information into finished intelligence. The first step in the intelligence cycle is planning and direction. This step includes identifying information needed, what must be known to safeguard the financial institution from money laundering, terrorist financing risk. The very next step in the intelligence cycle is collection. So in this step, the financial institution has to collect information related to various crimes. So though there are various intelligence collection methods such as open source intelligence, human intelligence, one of the or the major important intelligence collection method for a financial institution is open source intelligence. So, what is open source intelligence? So, OSINT, for the definition, OSINT is a branch of intelligence that analyzes information about people or organization from sources available to public. So, we need to understand like what are the various methods of collecting OSINT. There are these are the three main methods to collect OSINT. You have media, you have professional and academic records. You also have public data. Uh, while collecting, one of the important factors to look for from a financial institution perspective, while collecting OSINT, it is critical that the financial institution ensure the information gathered is from a reliable source. So the one of the important question over here is like, can we rely on all open source information that we are reviewing? Probably not. So within open source intelligence, there are reliable and unreliable sources. So these are few examples of reliable and unreliable sources. Right. So moving from open source intelligence, the next step is all source intelligence analysis. Now that the financial institution has collected open source intelligence specific to a typology, the financial institution should also look for previously identified transactions related to a typology in their own database. For example, the institution would have for an institution that is in the business for 10 years, and their compliance would have analyzed a lot of SARs or STRs related to various financial crime typologies. From that the institution has to look for specific typology that they are currently investigating. So that will give them an understanding as to what was the transaction patterns that they have identified previously. Similarly, the financial institution should also utilize the data shared by law enforcement agencies, which will help in defining customized analytical approaches. Um, Next step in the intelligence cycle is analysis. So here analysis refers to data analysis. So the data analysis will vary depending upon the intelligence product. So basically there are two main intelligence products. One is tactical and the other one is strategic. Tactical intelligence is similar to an customer alert investigation, where the investigation process is more of a reactive approach, wherein the strategic intelligence focuses on long-term issues, and it is more of an proactive approach. So what I'm going to cover here is more about the strategic assessment and how to analyze and prepare a strategic intelligence assessment. So now let's deep dive into the requirements of the strategic intelligence assessment and how to decide on the analytic approach. It is critical that the analytical approaches used to analyze the data are customized and it is aligned with the open source information. Let's take an example. If you are assessing human smuggling typology from Central America to the United States, as per open source, it takes a migrant who is crossing various Central American countries takes up to 3 months to reach the U.S. Mexico borders, and the travel expense of a migrant is mainly financed by the family members in the destination country, and smugglers often charge high amount to cross the borders. So while defining the analytic approach, one should look for high principal transactions uh, sent and received by non-familiar individuals within 3 months, presence of many-to-many consumer networks, and focus on transactions received at border provinces of Central America. So here we have a certain information that is from a reliable open source, where we want to look for transactional characteristics. So here what you're trying to see is, like, if we have to convert or if you have to use the information, the open source information, and look for transaction patterns, how that will appear in the transaction. So here we have a tailor-made analytical approach. This will provide us a set of data which we want to review further to understand if there are any human smuggling related characteristics in the data. And another important factor while reviewing the data derived from the analytic approach is to look for alternate explanation. For example, many to one transaction pattern is a likely related to terrorism financing if it is sent from an high risk country known for terrorism funding. At the same time, many to one transaction pattern from Middle East to China could be related to commercial transactions. So one needs to understand that anything and everything that you are reviewing as part of an analytic approach need not be the typology that you are focusing for. One has to ensure that if there are any legitimate or alternate explanation to the data that you are reviewing. All right. So next step is to analyze the transactions. So the previous slide, we looked into what are the analytical approaches, and based on the analytic approaches, we have decided and we have arrived at a certain data. Now we want to analyze the data. So these are some of the major questionable activities that needs to be analyzed in the data. The list is not exhaustive, but to cover the major ones, I have listed this over here. So the first one is consumer network. So what is consumer network? So consumer network is formed when two or more individuals send or receive transactions from a common counterparty. So let's look at an example of a consumer network. So in this network, if you see, all these individuals in this network are connected via counterparties, but they are not connected directly. For example, these two women are connected to each other, but they are not connected directly. They are connected via these two men. Uh, Moving on to consumer customer groupings. So unlike customer networks, in customer groupings, customers are not connected via counterparties, but they are connected via common location, common send amounts, or receive amounts. Next is flipping of transaction. Flipping is the process where customers receive transactions and then flip it to another individual. For example, someone who is receiving money would take a small fee. If it is received by a money mule, will probably take a small fee and will flip the remaining amount to a different country. For example, organized crime groups mainly use money mules to flip the transaction from one country to another. Next is rapid fire transaction. It refers to back-to-back transactions from a customer to multiple individuals within minutes apart. The remaining four questionable activities are concentration of activity in a specific city or province. One needs to look for presence of familial or non-familial transactions, structuring of transactions. Obviously, we all know that. Many to one transactions, etc. So there are a few other questionable activities that could be looked into, but these are the major ones. Now let's move to the next step in the intelligence cycle, which is production. So in this step, the findings of our analysis are consolidated in a report format. So let's look at the structure of an strategic intelligence assessment. So now that we have done the open source, then based on that we have identified the analytic approaches. From that we have a data. We reviewed the data. We looked for various questionable patterns, and we would have arrived at our findings, and we would like to put that in a report. So what is the structure of a strategic intelligence report? So these are the key sections in the report. To start with, we have a scope note. The scope note describes the financial crime typology, what information we analyzed, and the review period of the assessment. Under executive summary, it gives a high level summary of what information we analyzed, what was the findings, and the risk mitigation methods. Key findings is nothing but the summary of major findings from our analysis. Under background session, we list the open source information that supports our findings. Under findings and analysis section, all analysis related findings such as consumer network, city concentration, consumer groupings, and all other questionable activities that we identified as part of data analysis. The findings of that are listed over here. And the next important section is actions and risk mitigation. So this is the key area where the financial institution should list the actions that the institution is taking based on their analysis of a specific typology. For example, some of the actions could be like an obvious action is filing of an SAR or STR. Some of the actions could be also like interdicting the customer, and also bringing in some additional controls. If you're operating in a specific corridor, you want to bring in some additional rules to restrict the customer transactions based on the typology findings. So all these risk mitigation controls are also listed over here. And the next section is outlook and implication. So in this section, the investigator makes an assessment of how this activity will continue in the future. So now we have assessed a specific typology. We have identified the transactions. Now we need to give an assessment as to whether this activity is likely to continue in the next 6 months or 12 months. If so, what would be the impact to the organization, and how are we going to tackle it? Are we going to do a follow-up assessment or not? So that kind of information is provided here, so that the senior management or the organization can take an additional measure to mitigate those risks. Next is intelligence scams. Okay, it is also possible that while collecting the voice ID, the investigator need not have seen all kind of or received all kind of intelligence that is required to prepare a strategic intelligence document. So in this section, the investigator documents anything that was not available at the time of analysis, and if that information was available, then how it would have impacted the assessment. The final section is sources. Here, all open source sources and links utilized in the intelligence assessment has to be documented. So, in a nutshell, these are the major sections and the requirements within each and every section. Now let's move on to the next and the final step in the intelligence cycle, that is dissemination and feedback. So in this step, the intelligence reports that the FIs are producing are shared with the relevant authorities. So if you are working in an jurisdiction where you could directly share that with a law enforcement agency, you would directly share that with a law enforcement agency. Otherwise, you would share that with the regulator. Um, so moving on to the next slide. Yeah. So this is an example of an Intel report on wildlife smuggling disseminated with the Financial Intelligence Authority and their feedback on the report. So as per them, the report provided a deeper understanding of the smuggling network, and it further gave new insights on the modus operandi of the individuals behind illegal wildlife trade. Uh, Here is another example of an Intel report on drug trafficking disseminated with Qatar CID and their feedback on the report. So these two reports provided, actionable intelligence, and it assisted the authorities in bringing the bad actors to justice. So, in a nutshell, this is the impact of actionable intelligence sharing. Great. So we are moving to move towards the last slide. Yeah, so these are few sources that can be referred to learn more about intelligence analysis and report writing. Right, so that brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you all for your time and attention. Over to Anil.
Thank you so much, Arun, for the insights that you have shared. Uh, in fact, we have a very similar presentation by Mr. Ajay as well later during the day, who has extensively worked on illicit wildlife trading as well. But the perspective that you got, I mean, covering the entire spectrum from drug trafficking to child trafficking, I mean, that was something that opened up my eyes literally. So thank you so much for your presentation, Arun. We would definitely look forward to for further sessions from your end as well.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Daniel.
Have a
Thank
nice
you
day.
everybody. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.